for it, so you might as well.
Well, I gotta wait for you to come back and click, click, click. You're a little short, weren't you?
I was.
So you're still out to do the challenge.
But that's a wheel. I was gonna email you, the date for the cemetery meeting is wrong.
I put what you gave me.
Take it up now.
I don't have to change anything.
It's always the first Thursday of the month.
You sent it to me, and you sent it to me in all caps. I remember it.
And I must have looked at the wrong thing, or whatever. That's not your fault then. I should have,
Yeah, I try to cut and paste with those kind of things, because I'm good like that.
okay.
Probably 3 weeks before we go driven, so.
That means it's long on the back too, huh?
Yeah, okay, I'll talk to Truck and see if it's in the motor area, that's usually where you go, when it's only 4. So, I said, what?
So Phyllis, maybe you can move your meeting to the 5th.
What's that?
Maybe you can move your meeting to the 5th.
Oh, yeah, we could have
Got in
we're
there
not
and
having
died,
it
right
full.
inside, and
You'll
I
drive
said, so
it.
what usually happens is they get up underneath the dashboard, you gotta kind of reach up in there, and look. She's like, oh, I found it, I said, oh, good. I said, is it dead? And she goes, yes.
It's a bit of, and it wasn't that good.
Oh, no, they one of them was for you.
That's, you know, that's, that,
Somebody else.
Keeping it. Something that's still a legitimacy.
All right.
yeah.
Well, we gotta do
Close
this.
it down, lock it down.
Do a pledge and wait for her.
Here she comes. Click, click, click.
Somebody was good
You get a small copy. It's the large ones. We're all gonna be able to read. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give that. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one I can read.
Oh, there's still, yeah, look at that print. Ooh.
Thank you very much. Bigger.
Oh,
It's always when I'm trying to talk to them.
Not quite.
You didn't make 10?
Didn't make 10.
I'll share.
They only have a quick one.
Read it down.
We got one from Phyllis though. She'll give us a little one. Can I have one of the little ones?
I can,
Do you wanna make fun of me?
You can't do help. No holy rollers.
Well, we're always in church.
You got one?
No recital, I mean, no that
Here,
big thing.
this is what Phyllis printed out.
No.
Good luck.
I'm gonna look at your
I
names
only-
first.
I came
All
up
right.
with stuff.
Did you?
We're gonna do
I bought a pair of
the,
shoes.
You on the bus?
all right, ready?
Yeah.
We'll do the pledge allegiance first.
Yeah, yeah, good idea.
You open the meeting first?
Open.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed it. Oh.
Pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want an iPad or the paper would be going?
Yeah, but you always just said Karen. Fixes.
No, you get here an hour early, arrange it all.
Is that what you did? This is me, this is going to somebody else. That's that.
That first.
Yes.
Just have what you handed out.
Alright, so we're doing that first, there we go.
Well, we're doing bills first, huh?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
gonna mess with it.
Boundary Medical, 31912. Brentwood Newsletter, 9500. Buxton Oil, 193.89. Comcast, 74.90. Energy North Propane, 5500. Eversource, 29.78. Exeter Regional Co-op School District, $512,224. Boy.
Hurts every time I hear it.
Robert Gilbert, 931.70. Hartman Oil, 1201.22. Health Trust, 13,790.60. Health Trust Inc., 21.15. Kip Kaiser, 135.54. What did you miss? Good, Kip Kaiser. Joyce Kegel, $6.48. Coldus batteries?
Batteries, bulbs.
Okay, alright. $149.14. Mary Bauer Library, $15,667.03. Jim Michaud, $2,000. Moore Medical, $224.81. Wharton Salt, $4,897.74. Heza Awoski, $1,024. The Hampshire Retirement System, $25,828.67.
No, is that, New Hampshire retirement, I got 25,827.67.
What's that, Chris?
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What did I
Bernard Way, $28,533.34. Coal Corporation, $39.18. Rock Solid, $325. Let's have it. It's a cable TV, CCTV, and that's just.
Service call for the CCTV system and 5 remotes.
Cameras don't work, that's the way they work. SPS Trucking, $571.40. SAU 16 Treasure, $165,000. Seacoast Emergency Response Team, $37.50. Sons of the Time, $180. Stryker, $263.82. Title Communications, $109. UniFirst Corporation, $26.47. Valet, $641.56. Verizon Wireless, $320. WB Mason, $169.83.
Oh, $793,649.37. You get this?
I didn't think it was at $3.5 million. Is a chunk of it gone?
The bill.
Give this to Bill. Bill for the bill. Hi, guys. Hope you haven't got one in there.
I think I did.
I'll let you read them, okay?
Thank you.
Oh, get this one.
Kristen Patch, $327.70. George Abel, $1,070.10. Christine Belanger, $667.37. William Ferrara, $96.97. Mark Turner, $496.38. Jeremy Worcester, $623.47. Matthew Bergeron, $69.63. Anna Kraft, $142.92. Kenneth Culligan, $1,784.26. Jonathan Frizell, $41.80. Erica Kenyon, $243.32. William Kenyon, $151.71. Timothy Lindeman, $1548.83. Terry Mason, $62.40. Dennis Meacham, $180.75. Joyce Keeble, $476.56. Rachel Mowbray, $14.78. Olivia Wall, $59.10.
Total $8,057.99.
Alright. That goes to Bill.
I didn't read it yet, wow.
Oh, you can switch with Bill if you want.
Do you wanna read?
I don't.
We haven't heard your voice yet. I want you to do this one right off. Get this right. Look at you, you got.
$976.47. Jared Arsenault, $741.49. Joseph Bird, $694.81. Mark Brightman, $276.97. Taylor Campbell, $2326.83. Karen Clement, $997.36. Sharon Copeland, $468.09. Alessa Sanuski, $1864.18. Dwayne Merritt, $745.57. Peter Bonus Wall, $115.15. Daniel Frederick, $186.09. Ken Gothier, $1041.71. Jason Grant, $490.91. Brian Isabel, $185.60. Kaiser, $718.85. Michael Colleen, $823.98. Peter King, $81.04. Albert Kazaka, $695.10. Julie Delonte, $97.24. Thomas Leach, $75.15. Jonathan Markey, $310.44. Bruce Miller, void. Brian Mitchell, $151.97. Wayne Robinson, $815.38. David Roy, $827.94. Brenda Silva, $349.36. Jeremy Smith, $573.93. Catherine Coronas, $738.90. Becky St. Hilaire, $585.29. Donald Tilby Jr., $48.63. Dave Covey, $580.88. Joshua Turner, $150.82. Donna Bonaventure, $1255.56. Brett Wells, $818.56. Kelly Wilson, $599.64. Horace Wood, $1162.11. Daphne Ross, $557.22.
Total $23,102.22.
Total of $31,160.21. Any correct checks? Goodness, right. We had 1 hour for the fire department overtime, 1 hour for PD, and 1.5 for the highway.
Is it how we could recycle them? Would it be good news?
Yes.
Get one?
Hey, this is what happened.
It was good our last week, but no.
I didn't get to sign that BOW again, remember?
Oh,
That's all right. You got 3, they're all good.
I do have 3.
Need that.
So here we have it, it's sort of an ordinary week for income, but big fire department payroll and big $830,000, oh no, actually, we didn't pay all the school, but 800 and 700, whatever it is, school payments. So you can see the number shrank by $780,000.
When you did the transfer?
I transferred the 780 to make that number, which reduced us to just under $2.5 million. Another 165 for Swayze later in the month.
Thank you.
That makes it 30 per month.
So moved on the minutes from last week.
We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yep, come on down.
Okay, first, 253 pickpocket, Lorraine Woods. This is an electrical permit. 38 Robinson. This is Chris Harrington. And this one was plumbing and a basement remodel. 38 Robinson again, Chris Harrington. This is the electrical basement remodel. 19 Grant. And this is Jeanette Schlager. If I got that sound correct. And this is for AC unit, I believe. Then we have 40 Old Gordon, and this is Cabinet Builders, and it is an electrical furnace. Just lagging behind. all. It was Easter.
Nobody gave you any eggs? Anything else from that sign? Did you need, did you just do anything on that sign?
On the,
Oh,
if you don't
I
have it,
saw it, and I
have
signed
a
it.
copy.
I know we had it, so.
We had it in somewhere, cause I signed it, I remember signing it.
I remember seeing it.
Just if you want me to proceed and send that out.
Did you send a notice?
I saw it.
I think-
I knew
Ask
it.
for temporary sign permit?
Yeah, you wanna do a temporary sign permit? Apply for a standard sign permit. Inspector. Yeah, just send, do we have to have a motion? Motion?
Do what?
Just send the property owner,
Send a letter request for a temporary sign permit, or to remove signs.
Sure.
That particular one, is issued through, by the selectmen
Okay.
versus a regular sign permit that I get to issue.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Dave
made the motion,
and he
you can't-
seconded it.
Yeah. My motion is second.
Well, okay.
So I got a motion, I need a second, who's seconding it?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
They're gonna speak
Send
quick.
them- send
He's a
them a letter.
go-getter today.
I'm ready. We wanna get done. We're already.
Well, 14 minutes is our max, that we, I mean, the shortest we've ever had, so I don't think we're gonna hit it today.
And then as a general update, if you didn't receive an email from me or Karen, basically, Grange SFC has a packet in their hands, and they're gonna look at it to see if it's, needs to be verified, looked at, or if it's status quo. And they'll give me a price, review it. So, and I hope to have an answer at the end of the week. That was the plan.
Okay, how's everything going at the rec? Have we done anything down there yet or not?
Everything should be about done. I've gotta get back down and make sure the final coat of paint is on. There was some weeping, or there was some moisture in the corner. It was dry after the injection, and then after a couple of days,
Did you call them back?
no, cause I have to see what it is. Because like I said, there was definitely water coming in there before, but if there's no water coming in there now, it's, like I say, it could be any one of the cracks on the foundation coming in. So, but I got the little pump and it's all, I got the hole drilled so everything can,
Do what it has to.
do what it has, do what it needs to do. That thing cycles on like every 2.5 minutes.
Well, I think Jackson guarantees his stuff too, so.
Oh, sure, I don't think there'll be an issue, but I gotta figure out what it is we're looking at.
Okay. Well, I got one of those little cameras with a snake on it, so you can always, if there's a big
If
enough
there's-
hole,
yeah,
if
I
it's,
don't-
if it's literally the size of a
I
Rice
have one.
Krispie, I can slide it in.
Oh, really? Oh, mine, ½ inch I have to have. So, I can't remember if there was, yeah, there was one other item that we had, just reporting back on iWorks.
Yes.
What do we got on?
What was the question?
The on-site training, you decided you didn't wanna go that route.
The on-site training cost, was $2,000 a day plus travel.
2,000.
Yeah, plus travel.
And they're coming from Midwest, right?
And they didn't say, but,
Utah, I thought.
but the $2,000 a day, I thought maybe, you know,
Yeah, no.
we'll see how far we can go without that. And there was, they've sold about 120, packages in the area, and he said they've only had 2 that they've sent out on site. One was because somebody had to have the product up and running in 2 weeks to be the commitment, and the other one was, they just wanted, just so you know.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
It's an average of, up to 6 weeks for, if you do it yourself online.
How do you feel about on-site or support once you get up and going? If $2,000 a day to come and show you how it works, what happens if it?
Where everything's web-based, I don't
The whole
know.
program's web-based, right?
Just call another town now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that,
We shouldn't be concerned about.
I don't think it's anything that's mechanical or hardware type of thing, I should say. I don't
It's
believe.
just a software program that and they can probably dial into the computer if you
Right.
need it.
Right.
So I don't see that. Of course, that would be like any other company that we got. Nobody's in the backyard.
Yeah,
So do we have to vote to buy that? We didn't vote to buy it, right?
You approved to expend it as impact fees. $95.84 for the 3 years.
It would be a 3-year, can we do that on the impact
Do
fees
that
for all of them?
impact fees, we can withdraw it in installments if that's easier.
Actually, I think that was 85.
I think the high one was the 95.
Yeah, Patriot was more than,
Yeah.
I think.
Can you grab 'em? I'm sorry. Yes.
And then we would have to pay them every year.
Yeah, without it in front of me, basically there's like $5,000 a year that, an average cost. And that's the 3,500 or whatever it was to get the installation and the product. Other than that, you just rent it if, year to year,
Right.
and you can back out.
So the 5,000 is every year.
5,500 every year and 3,000 for the setup and data, so it's 8,500 for the first year.
Anybody wanna make a motion?
I'll move, yeah, purchase. Billing program for $8,500.
Out of the impact fees? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes. Good to go.
We're good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, your next contestant.
So I'm late, but actually it sounds good, I'm on investigation right now, so. I hope my, oh my guys, it's good,
That's good.
yeah, it's good. The new proposed bylaws, for the noise ordinance is probably the biggest pressing one, that looking for approval on.
The noise ordinance or the racetrack?
The noise ordinance,
Does that have to go to town meeting?
If you call them bylaws, it would have to go to town meeting. If it's a selectmen's ordinance, you guys can vote on it.
Well, this says bylaws.
yeah, so maybe we need to reword it.
Where did this come from?
We're-
Came from the board that actually, we asked Sergeant Wood, probably, he came to us, I looked at it, I asked him to amend it a lot because it wasn't very narrow and didn't expand the whole scope. So it did come from the board to ease the police department because they get a lot of calls that their hands are tied, that they can't do stuff with.
Doesn't the town have, in the zoning, have some noise ordinances?
Not really.
Can I speak to that?
Construction noise.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the town's got two sections, I didn't bring them with me, I didn't know I was doing it tonight. But they do have a general provision and they have one in the, site plan. And if you tie what you have there to some of the decibel levels in the, ordinance in the site plan, cause that listed out for commercial, industrial, residential, you know, between 65 and 70 or so on and so forth, give you some kind of a baseline, if there's any way to tie that together.
This really kinda came about with the tannerite issue, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, that's, and where we are with that is, as I've spoken to, the homeowner and the residents in question, and seems to be accommodating, and actually Captain Roy and I went up a couple weeks ago and spoke to him, and we haven't had any other incidents of that tannerite. So just so that you know, the tannerite it's not illegal. They buy like 2 different kind of compounds, they mix it together, and they shoot at it.
Oh, they
And
shoot
it makes
at
an incredible explosion. If you go on YouTube, you can, I mean, it's very dangerous. But there's not a law against it. And if it is activated or discharged and around neighbors, it can be very alarming, and that's why we've received a number of calls. So around the state and around the country they're having same issues that we're having. So it's one of those things that I've looked at, other options, this being one of them, although it really would only pertain to the time frame, I think, with this noise ordinance. I do intend to bring that in the next Rockingham County Chiefs meeting to see what other chiefs have done. So I have some thoughts, but I want to research it a little bit more. And actually reading this and thinking, you know, maybe one way to approach it is actually look at it almost like a fireworks permit. Because I do read in here about a provision where, like, if someone wants to discharge tannerite, and we have no way of really doing anything about it, maybe make it where they can get a permit to do it. I don't know, I'm thinking out of the box on this one. It's really an interesting quandary, to be honest with you.
But because this is a bylaw, it would have to be reworded anyway, because that would have to go to the town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Either way, we'd have to do a town meeting.
I think it's like-
Ordinance is only good for a year.
Okay.
I think we should plan on taking it to the town meeting, but we could certainly put it in the for sure.
I know there are some, ordinances in that, within the town clerk's office about noise.
I think the only one that was in there was about cars and traction.
There's another RSA that applies to animals. I know that because I've been out on a couple calls. And usually it's just a visit, that usually takes care of it. I don't know about the
Is
camera.
that continued barking, is that there?
Yeah, continuous barking for an extended period of time.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then there's times involved as well. After 10 o'clock, I think it is, it might be later than that, but I think it's after 10 o'clock and for more than an hour, I wanna say. I've been out on a couple of those issues, and usually that's all it takes. I go and talk to people who own the unit and say, look, you know, it's bothering your neighbors, and I know they should probably come and talk to you, but that's why I said when I looked at this, I thought, do we really need, we might, I don't know. Question is,
Well, the tannerite, I know, that's,
well, that tannerite issue, I know, I live pretty far away from where that goes off, and I heard it, and I thought, well, we've got something that's.
well, it
The
depends
first
on how
time I
much,
heard it, like, ooh.
it depends on how much, I mean, if you're talking, you know, 10 pounds of tannerite, that's a significant explosion. You know, so and nobody seems to have any answers, which is kind of interesting. I know up in Bristol, they actually charged someone with it, and we're waiting to see what the outcome is on that.
is there a class to it, or, you know, like category, whatever they charge, class 6?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's, the issue is it's actually mixed together, so both compounds are not regulated. It's mixing it. That
So
makes it.
once they mix it, they make the tannerite, and then
Yeah, and
the only way to discharge it is by shooting.
You have to, yes, a projectile has to hit it. Yeah, I'm telling you.
So you have to have enough land that you can shoot it.
Well, it depends on how you look at it, right, and who's actually doing it, you know?
Right.
It's, I think if I had to guess, I'm thinking there's gonna be enough response from the public to move to do something about it, like legislatively. Right?
So it only becomes tannerite when you mix the two together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
you know,
Tanner.
we're doing everything we can on our end. I mean, I've have some other thoughts, you know, of if it continues, how to approach it. So, but I wanna kind of hear what other chiefs have done before I in that direction, or a direction, I should say. So right now, I've talked to, the complainants, and I've talked to the occupant of the property, and, you know, they've been pretty understanding, and since that time that we talked to them about the tannerite, we have not had any other issues with it. I mean, there are issues with shooting in the backyard, but they're able to do that. So, you know, it's the tannerite that concerns me. So, so I guess we're gonna leave it at the noise ordinance.
So did we get this out of the RSA? We put in the RSA that's referenced to, talk about penalties, RSA 31, 39.
Sergeant Wood actually, I think what he did is he took a couple of surrounding noise ordinances, Epping being one of them, and this is modeled after the Epping ordinance.
I believe 31, 39 is the ability for towns to create ordinances.
The other thing that I have is our
Did we want to act on this? Do we want to take it?
I'd like to table it for a week, at least I have a chance to go through it.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to know is if, I know we can do something as a selectman, do we have to change this from saying?
Yeah, that can't say
Yeah.
bylaws, can't say.
Because we'd have to change the write-up of it, right? And then
Good for you.
bring it before the town next year.
We do a selectmen's orders for a year though, right?
Right.
So we do that.
So then we have to bring it before the,
You want this done before the summer for everything just going.
Right. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Track it.
Would you have a public hearing on any proposed selectmen's ordinance before you enacted it?
Probably. I would recommend it.
This is a pretty big,
That is-
Yeah.
it's a pretty big step, and there's some, I'm not saying that we would apply the penalties, because I have that opportunity as well, we don't usually follow up, but, you know, if you're gonna start nailing people for making noise after
Yeah, I
10
think the
o'clock,
fine
charging
schedule in
them
there was
fines,
what, $100?
$100.
And then 200 and then,
I have the same, I can do that too, but I generally don't.
Well, you
I
have
think we would
discretion.
probably do the same thing
Sure.
here.
I mean, you have discretion on how you, if you want to impose that or not.
But it's nice to have it there.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a nice tool to say,
yeah.
you know what, I don't wanna come back two or
Right.
four more times again.
It's one of those, you know, I would see utilizing this when you have someone that just does not want to comply or
Right.
just does not want to cooperate.
right, then you do the first, second, third. The other question I had for you was, have you done that time card thing yet? How's that working?
The app,
Yeah,
yeah, it's working out great, actually.
now, can that app be used for other departments or specifically police?
Oh, any department uses it. If you're thinking, it's not solely for law enforcement, if that's what you're
Yeah,
asking.
I was
Yeah, no,
wondering.
you can use it for pretty much anything.
I just think that would be, I think that would work really well for like the highway.
It's when to work. It's an application, and we got it for 30 days free. It's $200 a year, so we actually paid for it out of the police association. So we've got it for a year, and everything's on the phone now. So you're able to, with people taking leave or doing a swap on a shift, we're able to see it real time as opposed to going in and like someone forgot to write it on the hard copy schedule and you're not aware of it. So this way you're aware of it. So when you make, there's administrators, myself, Sergeant Wood, and Captain Roy, are the administrators of it. So when there's a swap, so to speak, and it gets uploaded onto the app, we get notified right away. So it's real
So,
time.
Is it a time card program or is it a scheduling program?
It's a scheduling system.
But then you know who's scheduled to work and what times are scheduled to work. I just think that might be a good program.
Police department's really the only one that runs it.
I was thinking about like for, cause I would love to get rid of the TV down at the highway and I'd love to get them a computer so we can keep track of when's this off and when's the dump open, stuff like that, cause we get a lot of people inquiring on this. working, who's gonna be working that? What's the schedule gonna be? Like, it also helps control overtime. Cause you have, you know, I would say Karen would be the administrator on it, and then now we can focus on that. Cause overtime does tend to be a huge driver in the budget.
Yep.
So if that's, maybe that's something to look into. So that was one of my things I was picking. Cause they got the TV down there to watch for the weather. Well, you can get weather on a computer, you can get weather on a phone versus watching TV waiting for the weather to show up. I don't wanna have people.
So mechanically, it's, one officer says, geez, I gotta go to the doctor this morning, I'm supposed to work, can you cover me? The other officer says, yeah, okay.
It
and they
has to
put
be
in-
authorized.
They put, so they have to go to one of the administrators and say, look, we
Yep.
wanna make the shift change.
Yep,
And then it's yay and nay, and it's quick, if it's on the phone, it should be pretty quick, right?
this is what it looks like. Actually, this is, it's the phone, maybe the computer one looks actually better, but I can, it's got a dashboard, it does, and it's got, you know, trades, time off, messaging, you have a messaging feature to it, staff.
See, that's good too, cause you can send, we're gonna have snow event and stuff like that. I just think it's a great way for scheduling.
Yeah, and I know, you
I
know,
need you
Captain
at
Moore.
the mowing the lawn over there today, it's just saves somebody from having a.
And then a couple people would be just like, this, you
Yeah.
have to go to tell Karen or you or whoever.
That's the schedule that I can bring up.
I just think that's, I mean, most everyone.
Can I just pass this around so that we
Go
can?
ahead, don't take my debit card.
Oh.
So you got everybody just there, you know where everybody is, but that is pretty.
Yeah, it's
Even
awesome.
shows when they're
Yeah,
done,
it's like,
shows
it's a
when they're
regular,
done.
it's like your calendar.
No, it
So
shows
it's
where
like my-
everybody is on a
my
And it's right
calendar.
up, you know, right in your phone.
You can take a look
So
right
you
there.
know who's working, when they're
Right,
working.
so for me, I mean, the old way, I would schedule home, and if there was any changes, I wouldn't know about it unless someone informed me of it or wrote it on my schedule that's at home. This way, you know, 9 o'clock at night, I'm like, I need to look at the schedule, I can just pick it up and look at it, and, you know, the changes are already there. So it was definitely a good investment, let's say that.
Well, that's why I know you had mentioned that time card and it was on the calendar, and you guys can control that, and,
Yeah.
well, it's scheduling, which basically correlates to when did people work. The good thing is you go,
You're supposed to know when you do work.
they should be working, when they should be working, how's that? And if they aren't working at that time, then that's something else that gets to get addressed, but I was curious about how that program is working for you guys.
It's working out great.
And it shows up on your computer too, so
Yep, you
you
have it
can
on your
change it on the
computer,
computer, so,
And you can download the app on your phone.
so
you
if they have a
can-
smartphone, they can use it there, if not, they can use it on the computer.
It's good.
That makes sense, cause I think we gotta bring some of the other stuff up to current computer technology versus looking at a TV and hoping to know what the weather's gonna be like. Just makes sense for plowing, for everything, mowing lawns, mowing a monsoon. You don't wanna get me going on that one, do you? So, cool, anything else?
No, I'm very happy with the results thus far. We've had a very busy week. George, Officer Abel, and Officer Arsenal actually had a good arrest over the weekend. Pretty good drug arrest. Which is,
That's good.
yeah, just sitting in our evidence room right now.
Can you smell it?
Yeah.
It's better than it was last year when we had one.
Yeah.
We were all up here like, open windows.
Maybe that's disgusting.
So I'm thinking
Yeah.
maybe that's why I didn't get a call.
So Dak found something, huh?
But,
Probably couldn't help it with the smell, right?
yeah.
George found it too.
No, it was a good arrest. They did a good job with it. I was happy with the results, and actually, just before I was late getting here, when I was out running around with Officer Greeley and, Officer Wister had an arrest one up there, and it's unfolding to be a pretty good one, actually. He's down there right now, so I'm trying to get back.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
Did you want to discuss the track bylaws, or we all?
I mean, if you guys are comfortable with the changes, then I think they're okay to go to the council.
I just had two questions.
Yeah.
Do you have your copy?
I That's the one thing that I did not bring, actually.
Article,
Yeah.
Article 2 talks about alcoholic beverages.
Yep,
It doesn't talk about the parking areas, which probably should be included.
yep. Because there's no alcohol in the parking areas.
Correct.
Only in the tents.
Well, there is no, according to this, there's no alcohol allowed at all
I know,
unless they get a special
Yep,
approval from the selectmen at a meeting. They would have to have a public hearing.
okay, so.
I
we
know
can clarify.
The track is dry now, they've
Yeah.
approached Epping before and Epping denied them. So, at this
See,
point,
that's interesting, because I'm getting conflicting information. I've been told they have beer tents there.
they might at the Nationals.
Ah, that's gotta be what it is then. Okay.
So, they would,
Yeah.
according to this, they would need a special exception from the selectmen after a hearing designated in Article 16.
Okay.
So for the Nationals, they can get a waiver, is that how they're doing it?
Well, I don't know how they're doing it, we don't regulate that now, but
Okay, so you
it all
want,
depends on where the beer tent is. If it's in
Right, 'cause if
Epping,
it's nothing, then we don't see it.
it doesn't affect us.
so you wanna have the parking area included in that,
I would, just for,
to cover,
to cover and
yeah.
maybe look at whether they're gonna need approval for a beer tent or what for the Nationals.
Well, it will only affect us, we only have the parking lot.
It runs diagonal
The
from the
part of
track,
the
so
picture, the beginning of the picture, all the gates.
there's a big grassy area on the right-hand side that is overgrown.
Only for alcoholic beverages for nationals?
Or even if they need it. And my only other question was on 13, talked about overnight staying. National spectators stay there too, so probably spectators should be added into that list.
Oh, so race car driver,
Owners
drivers,
and crew.
owners and crew, and spectators?
Where they camp out,
Yeah, you see a lot of RVs and stuff.
and they all camp out, they used to get permits, but they make them get permits inside to stay in there.
Or
Track would
they
charge
they
it.
camp up on the
On the
hill,
hill, yeah.
and I think they have to pay to camp up there.
Okay. Those are easy enough. Yeah, propertyroom.com, we're waiting for labels, once we get that, they're underway, it's a process with that, once we get what we need, we can start labeling it and then calling them, well, we'll give you a list of what we wanna dispose of, and then you give your blessing on it, and then we call them, and they'll come get it.
And then you saw, the email for the meeting that we're gonna have on
Yeah,
Monday?
building committee,
Yeah,
yeah,
the expansion.
yes.
So that
Research.
probably has to be up here, right?
Just needs to be, it should be open to the public.
So
And-
I'm assuming you don't wanna have the police department open to the,
Yeah, no, I think it'd be best to
Pick
be
something
up
up here.
here, and our first one is scheduled for
Monday.
Monday, April 9th at 6.
Yeah, I showed up yesterday.
You did?
I was down there, Danny showed up, he's like, so, it's not Tuesday, I'm like, so, that's next week. I will be back, see ya.
All right. Oh, and, our new cruisers should be in by June.
Okay, cool.
Gonna keep one for you?
No,
No? Okay, let the boys bang them up already?
I'm all right right now.
Okay.
I would like to get a, laptop or mobile, data terminal in mine, so I
Oh,
can
no.
have spots and all.
Get every wire to a start, the battery problem fixed.
You just gotta make sure the radio's off, so we rectify that, simple things. But so, yeah, we're looking at maybe a grant for another mobile data terminal, that's a little ways away though. Yeah, I would like to have one of that,
Should've won, yeah.
so,
Cool,
yeah,
good deal, I appreciate it, thanks for coming in.
Thanks,
all
Jimmy.
right, thank you.
Have a good-
So, this is yours, I got my notes here, so I'm gonna hold on to this. So on the, do I need to change any language on this, or are we gonna, to make it ordinance as opposed to bylaws?
It would have to be an ordinance first for us, and then it would have, then we'd have to have a public meeting before we, you know, we'll have to post when we're gonna
Should have a
discuss it.
public meeting on both the track and the.
Yep, absolutely.
So do you wanna do that? Why
And
don't
the noise ordinance.
we can post that for 2 weeks from now? Maybe we can do it in 2 weeks, would that work?
No, because I have this, if I send it to the paper today or tomorrow, it won't go in until next Thursday, and then you've got to notice it at least 7 days before,
So you wanna do a month from now?
at least.
Alright, so we'll do it in a month.
Mhm.
If you wanna
Make
do it
those
on a night,
changes.
over here at 6,
You
but.
don't
Yeah.
notice it off.
Which-
It won't affect the track until they open with the track stuff?
No,
No,
it
'cause
should.
those,
Well,
Do I need to call them or anything, or?
And you'll touch base with Epping to see if they
As
do a
we
beer
change this,
tent
yeah.
or not,
Oh, yeah, yep,
cause we don't know what's going on with them. since
Yeah.
it's- I mean, the
Right.
property line's kinda messed
Right.
up, so
Right.
if they're doing beer, it's gonna come over into our area, and then if it comes into our area, how's that affect?
right.
We gotta be consistent.
Well, I think, if I had to guess, I think you're probably right, it's probably just for the national event that they have that, but I'm not sure on that.
and the national people take right over the whole place, they just,
I mean, that
Yeah.
place is.
they just take over and they have.
Well, they rent it.
Rent it for the week, yeah. They bring their own security, their own fire, their own everything.
Well, yeah, I will check into that. So as far as, you know, what would you like me to do for,
That would be a noise
So I
ordinance.
think
So take the
we
bylaws
gotta
out
check
of
with
that?
council and see what, make sure it's done right, or at least New Hampshire municipals.
I can send it to Primex and have them review it, and once I get their feedback, then you guys can regroup before I post anything
Okay.
for a hearing.
okay,
So
so,
we'll let the chief know in a week?
Yeah. So that way you can check with Primex, and then we'll figure out if we have to change it to ordinance. Because if it's an ordinance, it's only in effect for a year through us, and then we go to a meeting to become a bylaw, so. But we're still gonna have to have a public meeting just to discuss it, where we
Right.
post it ahead of time, so.
so I will wait to hear from you. All right, okay.
Oh,
Just something to consider about the noise ordinance, having attended several Sig Sauer presentations in front of the planning board, that the noise ordinance has been a heated discussion with regard to the shooting there. Just to,
Cause they do.
well,
the
I know the
training
noise
as
ordinance
well,
comes
but
into play with the track too.
Wouldn't that be an exception though to the?
I think it's in there.
don't think it was acted upon when Sig Sauer came for their covered range. There wasn't anything that they could point to that, you know, limited what they could do there.
Not sure that a Brentwood noise ordinance could
Effect
For
first.
affect
Sig.
SIG unless they're shooting in Brentwood.
Yeah, that's true too, right.
I just remember it was very heated conversation about noise.
I think they wanted to build on Brentwood land, or use Brentwood land in the expansion, so that's how it came up.
It's just that if you open up the noise ordinance,
Yeah, that's a good
you
point.
you might not have an empty room, is all I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah, that's
Good to know.
certainly something to consider. Yeah,
Well, and then, yeah, I'd be curious too, how would the noise ordinance affect, like when they had the flying cars and stuff like that, those things were loud. But it's only certain time,
right,
It's not,
Again, we need to review this again.
because they stop at
I
like
think
10,
there are
I
exceptions.
think they
that
stop
are-
at 10 o'clock or something.
Well,
to do this.
I don't think so.
the track regulations specify what time they have to stop,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they can only go past if certain,
If it's an emergency or.
certain requirements.
Mm.
Again, and then
Sig
it's,
trains at night too, right?
we really can't limit
So they do shoot at night.
the noise coming from Epping into Brentwood.
Probably exempt the homeland security.
Cause
Yeah.
the starting line to
You know,
out is
yeah,
always
yeah,
Epping,
yeah.
so.
Probably exempt.
Thank you, you too.
Are you gonna participate in drug take back day?
We have looked into it, that's the extent of it right now. But, if we don't do it this month, I definitely wanna do it in the fall, I know they do 2 times a year, so.
Cause I've seen in other areas of the country that they do drug take back day and they also do a shred event. So I was proposing that the town
Do it.
contract with our shredding company, whatever shredding company, people can bring so much,
Like almost do it on the same day?
do it on the same day,
Yeah.
so it's like a
Right.
double,
Yeah,
you know, brings more people out to both events.
yeah,
You know, people can get rid of some of their personal
Yeah.
documents and,
it's a great idea. Yeah, so if, it probably won't be this month, cause I know it's coming up, but it is on my list, and it is on my agenda to get that, cause I do believe in that program, and especially in this.
so if you can just let us know when in the fall is, and we'll
Yep.
try to see what it would cost to have a shredder here and.
What do they do with the,
With each,
drug
is
thing.
each you do it at the highway shed, if you do it in
People
the
can
fall,
drop off
during
some
the
drugs.
household
I know,
hazardous
but then
waste.
you
day,
probably
it's
would-
$2,000.
Dispose
Uh,
of
drugs have to be-
Yeah, we have,
They
there's a
dispose of them.
process.
You might be able to do it at the highway shed, but I think they're really busy and it would just be another,
A bottleneck.
BCC and in the truck of the yard, they just.
yeah, what do you do with the
So,
drug stuff?
so DEA is really the driving force behind the National Drug Take Back Day. And they have, and it's through the AG's office as well, they give you, policies and procedures that you have to follow. So when you take all the drugs in, you package them up, we deliver them like the next day up to Concord, and there's just a number of people that just take all these boxes, and from there, they take the boxes right down to, I think it was somewhere in that, it might have been
wheelbarrow, I think.
Wheelabrator, it might have been Wheelabrator, someplace where they just put them in an incinerator.
So it's like a cremation of
Yep.
drugs.
Yeah.
Yep. But there's, you know, there's accountability, so they have a process in place, and I've participated in it, and it's a good program, so I definitely wanna do it here.
Cause Fremont did it. And
Yeah.
I brought my drugs over there when they had it.
Yeah.
We didn't have it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like a great program, especially with all the stuff going on.
right.
I'm just wondering how that's controlled when, as long as they have procedures in place.
Yep.
for-
Oh, yeah, there was a thing on TV about it. It was quite,
It's a national thing.
yeah, so it's quite,
Yeah,
like she said, they have safety rules.
It-
that they
it's done right.
Cool, I'm up for it. Good deal, run
Alrighty.
downstairs.
All right.
You got business.
Okay.
Somebody's
Have a
calling.
good
I
night.
know, right?
Be safe out there.
All right, good night.
Take care, thank you.
Those are documents.
Documents, oh.
So in the mail was a letter from DES and also an email from Rustin and Exeter about the pickpocket dam being reclassified as, a high hazard dam. Rustin would like to know how involved the town of Brentwood would like to be as they move forward in this process. They've sort of passed it along to their river advisory committee, which meets during the day. So I don't know if you wanna send someone to attend those meetings, at least initially, to sort of see how things are flowing, or,
No pun intended.
oh, yeah, I guess.
Are they talking about taking the dam down? Cause if they are, then we probably should have
They haven't
notice
gotten,
to river abutters and.
they haven't gotten that far, they had a study done, in an effort during the reclassification.
And the dam is primarily
Is it all
Dan's
next?
all
all on Exeter.
Right, but
Yes,
the
the backup
impact is in
is-
that one.
So we get the pond behind it.
Right. If they take the dam down,
There'll be no pond.
the river level from,
Right, gets affected.
All the way down through now, that holds everything back all the way to Fremont, to
And
Norwood.
it affects the wetlands and everything else, right?
oh yeah, I don't think it,
Well, it would affect it all the way up to Mill Road, it's all holds all.
well, it's all open, but I don't think it would affect it that far, I don't think it backs it up that far. Cause at Hague Road, I've never seen really backed up, it's always just free flowing. I mean-
I'm thinking maybe, I wonder if,
Well, Ella Schultz,
Conservation Commission or
Yeah,
Emerald or
I
something.
would give it to
Send it,
Coco.
Jeff.
I think,
Well, Phyllis is going, you're gonna meet this week, with conservation?
No, not till
No.
next month.
Different.
yeah, I just
the
think,
11th.
I think
The
Jeff or
11th.
Emily would probably be
I
really,
think I have that on my.
especially if we know it could affect
You run-
that ecosystem that's already there.
I'll pass this along to them.
It goes, the old swimming hole will be gone with the rope, it'll swing, all be no water there now. Behind, Appalachians.
Well, I know there was a lot of, people concerned just on when Mill dams, Mill Pond, Mill dams took it down. People were concerned about that with their wells and everything else. That's something that conservation would definitely keep in.
Who who votes to take the dam home? Is it Exeter town or is it the state? Who would, if they want to
I
remove
think
it?
we're talking about they have to get it inspected more frequently and,
There's a higher
and have to
cost.
do repair.
They don't want us to pay money to have it inspected, because
Not
that
yet.
helps us.
Not
That's what's gonna be next,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
Well, it's all,
They always get us on something. You want the dam, you're gonna pay for it inspected.
Well, the cost went up a lot. from
Yeah.
when we
That's the Pine Road deal again.
so.
This is the fraud questionnaire, getting ready for our annual audit with Plaza and Sanderson. Need a signature from the selectmen.
motion? Do we need a motion on this?
If you just sign it.
It says that you're not aware of any fraud in town and that you have an investment policy, learn of legislative updates from NHMA.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
He's like, I'm not
I
saying
give
it.
it, I used two at once, I used mine off.
He's done for the day.
I've used mine up.
He's hit his limit. He's not doing a motion for a second.
This is the abatement that you voted to approve last week, I just need you to sign that. This is a new veterans credit,
She's giving money back to them.
is met all of the requirements.
Do we have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Oh,
So there's been a lot of vet credits this year. There's a lot of vet credits this year. Now that you have the new all veterans credit.
Should love this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Get them from this year.
Well, this is what we came for.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys voted on that last week, Dad was here.
Right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just the notes.
Okay, notes. We did the minutes.
No.
Oh, I have one other thing before we move to the notes. The resident at 19 and a half Sherman Ave would like their address renumbered. They don't
They
want
wanna
to
be
be
a
in a
hole?
half, they want to be a hole. But the way that the street's numbered, there's not room for them to move their number without re-affecting anybody else. So they had proposed changing their number to 22, which I
But they're on the wrong
passed.
side of the street.
They're on the wrong side of the
Yeah.
street, and I passed it by fire and police, and police said it was okay, fire said absolutely not. So either way you do it, you'd have to renumber 5 houses either up or down in order to get them a new number, and they would require you guys to hold a public hearing, in order to notify all of those other people that would be affected.
Just if the post office with that too, with the mail and Jenny.
They'd have to go through the post office and,
That's the little house of Leo, the little camp on the river, that was there with?
I don't, it's the
With
butts.
that big, you know.
Oh, it's August, I don't know, yeah, okay, yeah.
My suggestion would be till 19 and a half to ask all their neighbors that would be affected
To do it
to sign a
voluntarily.
petition that they have no
Authorize it.
problem
Yeah, that's a
with
big
Right.
doing it.
Cause they're gonna, people are
Gotta
gonna,
change all their bills, their checks, it's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
involved,
yeah.
just to do that for
Right.
everybody else.
yeah.
If the neighbors wanna do it, I guess that would be the best.
Yeah,
thing.
cause then they gotta
And if they
change
don't-
all their.
Oh, you gotta change
bills, they
everything.
gotta
You
change
change
Maybe
everything.
19 and a half.
Why they wanna change it?
How
Because
did
they
they
wanna
ever get a
change.
half number anyways?
I don't know how it was ever assigned as a half. It's really bizarre.
Sure,
Well, cause is the house, is the other house 19?
sure.
Yeah, see.
They're down there behind there.
Yeah, cause.
Their house is down
It
over there
must have
behind
been
there.
subdivided and renumbered that way.
Yeah, if I remember right,
Yeah,
yeah.
because there wasn't any other ones available, so that's why they came up
Gave
with
them a
that.
half, right.
But they wanna buy this home, and they don't wanna buy it if it's,
19 and a
19 and a
half,
half.
oh my
I
God.
thought they were,
they're a tenant, so that's another
Yeah,
level,
but
because
they're
they have to
also
get the
looking
property
at,
owner to
um,
consent.
I think that's that camp that Leo just saw it moved in. It was a summer camp, and then Leo moved into it and did it all over. Did a nice house out of it.
With that big house and it was good.
She was behind there, it was a summer camp.
It'd be cool to have some cheese box on the
Yeah, you might get your mail.
I get everybody else's mail too.
Oh,
You
come
do?
on.
Did you ever get your newsletter? No?
What's your-
Oh, that was probably that, oh yeah, that fell out.
Huh?
She asked if you stole it.
No, we've had a terrible time with.
Well, no,
the
no,
mail.
I gotta see what happens with that.
We've got terrible time with the mail on,
They dropped the newsletters off at the Exeter Post Office, cause I used to
Right.
do that. They are supposed to stay there and they deliver them, but for some reason, in the wisdom, it comes to Manchester, and it gets on our machines, and a lot of it gets torn up and stuff gets ruined. It's not supposed to leave Exeter, because it's delivered down there, I used to deliver that. We put it on the dock, it's all made up, all the carrier routes, we're
Right.
supposed to take it and go. But somehow down there, it's leaving there and coming to Manchester, some of it is. And we find it, we're working on it. I find these
So how
newsletters.
do we correct that problem?
Something's gonna be done with them on the post office. When it comes on the dock, the carrier's supposed to take it, they take them right out. They don't, for some reason, in their wisdom, it's getting screwed up. And they're shipping it to Manchester and they shouldn't go because they all get torn up on the machines. Or they get lost, or they get out of.
Somebody should talk to
The postmaster down there, so, yeah, when somebody drops that off, you should do that.
Yes, sir.
Before I make a complaint to the post office, and you're doing the newsletter now, did the newsletter get mailed out to everybody that was on the previous mailing
Mhm.
list?
Yeah,
Because I
we
wasn't
haven't-
sure
we
if I didn't
haven't-
check a box or something.
I
No,
got
we
it.
haven't,
No,
Okay.
I got mine.
Well, then I shall talk to the postmaster in Exeter, but I haven't gotten it yet, unless it's in the mail today and I haven't looked at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has it.
And you got yours on the same street.
Well, they're paying. We're paying.
Well, that's good to know, because we actually sort it, so that
Yeah.
it doesn't have to go
Right,
anywhere,
that's
that's
the thing.
why
I
we
used to
do all
deliver,
those
I used to do that,
boxes.
deliver.
Right,
It was
so-
all by Route 1, 2,
Yeah.
ready to go.
I'll go talk to him.
Take your inspector badge now, show them who you are. But you got your big badge, right? Got your big government
He's got
badge.
his big
That's-
Yosemite hat on too.
I'm not supposed to use that, that was retired. I can go
1:30.
talk to him.
All right.
I know some stuff has come up, not a lot, but some
Gonna get
stuff.
it all.
Thanks, Bill, I appreciate that.
Or steal my mouse.
Need to tell them.
All right.
It's in color on
Now
that.
we're gonna do, thanks, Bill. Now we're gonna do notes,
What do we do?
No,
Draft minutes.
draft minutes,
Bill wanted to talk about draft minutes.
draft minutes.
Oh, yeah, I just think draft minutes is open up a can of worms, I think we just need to go what's approved.
Well, we have 5 days to, 5 working days.
No, I don't
Right.
think we need to be posting draft minutes, because what happens, my experience is, when I was doing that in a previous life, is that people then hold you to the draft minutes, even though they've not been approved yet, and it just leads to a lot of problems. I'd rather just go with the minutes that we approve and have them be
Posted.
the official posted minutes. And if we wanna look at those, I think we can come into the office or get a copy, we can make our own, whatever we need to do to be up to speed on the minutes before we come in for our meeting. There are ways for us to do that. I think posting draft minutes just is gonna cause a problem, that's just my experience has been, people go, well, in the draft minutes you said, and now you're saying, no, that's not what you did.
Well, because they aren't accepted. I just think it's a quicker way to get them on there for people to see the minutes.
And then technically, it creates twice the work for Karen,
Yeah, that's the other.
because she's gotta post the draft minutes and then take down the draft minutes and put up the approved minutes.
Do we ever change the minutes that you have to change them? You just can't
Yes,
take the word
yeah,
out?
we
It's,
Yeah.
they're scanned, so it's not something you can just.
Well, it's okay if they get on there in a timely manner, but,
Well, we have 5 days, right?
right.
Yeah, 5 days.
It was one of the, I wanted to bring it up at the public comments, but since you're discussing it, it was my understanding you voted at the March 20th meeting to put the unpublished minutes up. So for someone like me that wants to come to the meeting and have already read the minutes, I couldn't do that this week because the minutes aren't posted. I'd have to come in and take up some of Karen's time saying, I want a copy of the unpublished or the unapproved minutes. And as a citizen, I don't want to have to come in every week to see Karen to get the minutes, to be able to review them before I come to the meeting. Because I have questions about what had happened at last week's meeting, and the minutes probably would have answered those questions, but now I'm gonna have to ask you those questions at the public comment portion, because the minutes weren't available for a member of the public to review. So there's another side to the coin
Right, right.
besides what you guys are talking about.
I've never been requested to view public minutes, or draft minutes even, prior to a meeting.
And I appreciate that. It's been a long time since I've come in and, if you talk to the previous town administrator, she'd say I was a frequent visitor. And one of the things that I heard at town meeting, when I was discussing an issue that was important to me, was one of the selectmen commented, well, you need to be more informed about what's going on with these things. And the way to do it is to read the minutes. I mean, I'm happy to stop by and see you, but it's gonna take up your time every time I come in.
How
Or
much do
anyone
we
else.
actually change between the draft and the regular one, really? I mean, I know we do have changes.
Well, you'd have to watermark them as draft though, so you'd have to remove the watermark and then,
But do we really do much changes, I mean, from when the draft is up there to
We
the
have
regular?
had some, I mean.
Not very
I
much
know-
so, right?
I know we've had corrections, so for the most part, we're pretty consistent.
I don't have a problem. I mean, I know it's more work for you, but I don't have, let the people know what's going on, it's fine with me, I mean, whatever. I mean,
doing drafts or not, so,
I make the motion to do drafts.
you wanna do drafts?
Well, that
You,
was.
you already did that on March
I
20th.
make that.
Yeah, that motion
So,
was not made.
unless you wanted to make a motion, if somebody wants to second.
I think doing drafts is an actual work, and it's not something that we need to do, that's what I think, and that, for the reasons that I stated before, because people get a hold of the drafts, and then they say, oh, well, that's not what you said, or then we approve the minutes, and they go, well, wait a minute, in the draft minutes you said, for me, it led to a lot of extra conversation about what we were doing at the budget. So, for that reason, I said, okay, we're not gonna do draft minutes. I didn't post the draft minutes, what I did was I had the minutes available for people if they wanted to look at them before we voted and approved the minutes. I had very few people who would come to me or ask for them, and people asked me, I'd just make a copy and send it to them, so, I mean, we could send in, somebody wants them, I could send an email out to them, and that's what I tell people, if you want a copy of the draft minutes, I'll certainly be glad to send them to you, just understand that these are
There's not
drafts.
official yet.
Right, it's just a draft, it's just kind of, you know, I used to record the minutes too, and they used to say to me, I need a copy of the recording, right? And my position was that was just for me to pursue the draft and transcribe the minutes properly, so I didn't provide
That's not
that as
true,
well.
if you use a tape, they have a right to that tape unless you get rid of it before
I
they.
made sure that I didn't have that as a record after I did the draft, so.
Right, because if you keep the tapes, then you have to do
Then you
minutes
have
were
to-
made.
Right, they have to be made
Right,
available,
right,
yeah.
right.
So I had somebody apply that rule to me as well, so.
So
I
do
just think it's just
you
actual
wanna
work.
make a motion on making them, not making the draft minutes posted until they're approved?
I just have one more. I do think the point was made that people need to be more involved in
Yeah.
2 weeks after a meeting for minutes to be posted
It's a long time.
is a long time. So I was all for getting rid of the draft minutes, but
I think we should do that, I mean, we agreed to it. I
having
know
stuff
before I was on the
posted.
board, I used to like to see the minutes, I couldn't get it.
Shame on us that we tell people that they need to be informed and we're not gonna inform them, so. I'm sorry, Karen, I know it's more work.
Well, and I can just, I mean, I've been better about making sure they're posted first thing Wednesday morning once they've been approved. During budget season, it's sort of one of those things that is the bottom of the to-do list. So that, if the board is in agreement that you wanna post draft minutes, does somebody wanna take responsibility to review them before they're posted? Or you just want me to post whatever I type?
I'm pretty comfortable with what you type. We've only,
Yeah,
It's very rare that we have to modify it, so,
Yes, no.
yeah.
but if
It's
you
only-
wanna send them to me, I'll look at them.
I mean, I'll review them, but.
And, I mean, I'll review them too, I don't. Oh, 'cause there's my notes, I think that.
But I think we should probably be posting them pretty quickly, right?
They should-
How long?
I would
Well,
say-
Since I brought that up,
Depends on my
they've been quicker, because I noticed, you know, but,
They're always done on Wednesdays.
Oh.
Usually, well, they're always done and available, sent out to the board generally on Wednesdays or Thursdays, depending on if I have class on Wednesdays.
right.
The board generally has a copy by the end of that week.
I would
So-
say draft minutes by Thursday, close of business, because, we're on Friday, so.
Right.
Not to split hairs, and this was never an issue with this board, but in the past, there's a very specific statutory requirement under the right to know law. Is it 5, I thought it was like 144 hours or something, but I would
It's 5
suggest to the
days.
board that just stick with the right to know law for the unpublished minutes.
It's 5 days,
Well, they need to be made available for 5 days. They don't need to
Right.
be
Right.
posted on the website within 5 days.
right.
So that's the other thing, because Friday is not a working day for me, so they're actually if I post them on the Wednesday following the meeting that they're approved, they're actually being posted on that 5th day.
I don't, and again, I'm not, if the chairman will allow me, I'm not an expert on the right to know law, but I don't think the right to know law cares whether a municipal employee is working or not. The law is pretty specific about there was a meeting, the minutes have to be made available.
I think it's 5 office days.
It's 5 days.
And I'll be happy to bring my copy of the right to know law to the next meeting.
Yeah,
No, I'm pretty sure.
It's 5 days, I read it
I
today.
mean, I guess if we post the draft minutes when we get them, so they're gonna be out within 2 days, so that would be irrelevant.
Yeah, so
with the
that's,
right to have, we know it's 5 days, right? So
Right.
whether it's 5 working days,
And then
5
that
office
would mean-
days, 5 whatever days,
So I mean, as long as they're done
yeah, so if you're,
on Monday,
Monday,
we
when you,
meet Tuesday.
when you post the
The
agenda,
post the draft.
you can post a draft minutes at the same time. And then that would give people the ability to review it before our meetings too. Does that work for everybody?
Who's going to be at the drill tomorrow, the grading
I'll
drill
be there.
tomorrow?
I can't be there till after 10:30. Told Dad, yeah, I'd be there after 10:30.
Oh, so I mean, you all
You can
said.
go,
No, you can go.
Just
Yeah,
lunch-
you're gonna
lunch
need
on
to have
Mondays.
I mean, I don't wanna go and be a lumping log.
Oh, no,
Is that
don't
what I
get
can
worried.
do?
There's a selectman's
You're a
job.
selectman.
Take
Yes.
place.
It's a job for us.
Okay.
You have to call the troops in.
And tell me to shelter in place.
What's that?
Yeah, call, that's what I say, shelter in place, we've got zombies leaking out.
All right,
Work session next week, who is planning to attend?
I'll be here.
I can be here.
It's at 4 o'clock?
I should be, unless I'm in the, Brentwood, yeah.
We should, so
I
everybody
should
should be
be.
here just
I'll
about.
try.
That's 4 o'clock, right?
Well, I have a request. So, we're having the audit on the week of April 16th. So they're gonna start and do background work with me on the 5th. They'll do some preliminary work with DAF on the 12th, and then they'll be here the week of the 16th for 3 days. So Carolyn's gonna come in on Tuesday the 17th to help, with that, because those are all of sort of her general ledger numbers. And then I would like to request, I have money in the budget already, and I'd like her to spend some more time, maybe 1 day a week for a little bit of time to get Kelly up to par on the accounting piece of her job. So
Like a trainer.
just a trainer, just to help work with her on sort of cash receipts, general ledger, journal entries, balancing, entering in the deposits and balancing sort of all of those accounting pieces. So there's so much of it, and she's getting better with payroll and AP, but I haven't given her all the extra accounting things yet because I want her to master payroll and AP before I start piling more things on.
Carolyn did it probably.
I did it for 28 years.
I
And
think,
Yeah, she
I
should
don't
really
have
be-
the time to sit
should
with
know how-
Kelly to do
Yeah, she should
payroll
be fine
AP
training
and
her,
then
yeah.
another day during the week to do the accounting piece.
Carolyn should be good, yeah.
yeah, after 28 years, she's got it.
Yeah, and she's much better now that she's
Retired,
Yes.
is she?
Yes.
She can walk around now,
Okay.
probably.
She can, she can,
No more
I
pain.
went to her house and she says, watch me, I can walk her straight along.
All
So
right,
that's fine.
You need a motion for that or no?
You have money for that, right?
I have money for it in my budget.
yeah, so it's, yeah.
Okay.
So do you need a motion or no?
No, I don't think so, do we? I don't think we do.
Sure, I know.
All right, motion, who wants to give me a motion?
Give me a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Yay, passes, there you go.
And there was a memo in the mail, from
The
David
ditches.
Tillman about the
Ditches, yeah.
ditches, the BRC.
About putting some
Some
flags
sort
up
of.
there.
Needs a small little rail on each side of that, they need something like
That is a,
like a 2-foot little fence on each end of that.
Maybe ask
Some
Rich to
reflective.
price something out.
The
As I
ditches need,
recall, that was because of the
Didn't
snow.
they have a-
That was the
I
snow.
thought we had
Yeah.
something over it at one point, didn't we?
with the new,
We had,
No, but
Back in it, I
if
don't
you,
know
no
what that
matter what you had over there,
Indicators.
when the snow piled up like that, I
Yeah,
don't think
you
it
can
would have
see
been
it.
visible anyways, and you gotta know when you're backing up back.
we lose an axle, yeah, had to happen.
they need to, though, clean them ditches out, they need to be cleaned up for drainage, because it's a mess, and before you too much work putting railings up, you should actually,
So we need to touch base with Wayne on
they should
cleaning
clean
out.
that ditch right out, it should be cleaned out so water flows from up the pavilion down by through there, because it's probably a mess. You know, put the rail out, I mean, instead of fixing that, not fixing it all around it, it's gonna make it worse.
Well, it's probably gotta be a movable railing, cause I'm assuming you have to clean it out periodically.
I think they, just a culvert there, just go, I think it's a little rail, just a
A
rail,
little
just up
flat
there,
or
make it all.
something up there.
Cause both sides people drive off, I mean, they just do that, it's just,
So you know what I'm saying, you only do it once, so you only try it once.
Depends on who's driving. And what they're driving.
you hit a Jeep with
If you have a
flashing
Jeep with
lights. you're-
flashing lights, you can go anywhere you want.
So pass that off to Wayne.
Pass it up to Wayne.
Alright.
Have them take a look at it, road, that's a road thing.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, can I ask something?
Comments?
Yeah, last week in the minutes, we were gonna place up the POWMIR, did you do that?
I got some quotes from Bob McGuigan, so he said it was about $200 for a chair, about $80 for a stanchion, $100 each per flag, so that's
About 500, that's
$500.
480.
And then,
The plaque was how much?
the plaque is about 200, and then whatever stone or whatever you wanna put it on.
So,
Well, we don't need the stone though.
no, you either do
Find
the
a rock,
plaque,
I'm sure.
or you do the chair and
You did the
flag.
chair inside with the 2 flags and the stanchion in the corner.
Or you do,
Do a stone outside with the
Right.
plaque and put it by the flagpole.
So how much was the plaque?
About 200,
Oh, okay, but in the chair and the,
it's about 5.
is 5. See, I personally like the plaque because I just think it's gonna take up,
I like the firehouse, got that one, it's
it'll
rock.
take,
Yeah,
I think it'd take up too much room in the town office, that's my,
That's fine.
do we have a motion for,
the plaque.
plaque on a rock, we'll have to have.
Make a little, we'll make a little park around the flagpole,
How
you know,
about
we'll
we-
guide around
Little-
it.
Yeah,
Get a design and costs on it,
Total, and then make a motion after that.
okay.
but
but we have to know where they're gonna be putting it on.
well, I
Right
would
here,
assume it's gonna be put near the flagpole.
Right, but in front of the
Right, but
flagpole.
then, with the plaque, what are you gonna mount it to?
Yeah.
Rock.
Well, that's
We're
what
gonna
I'm-
get- we're gonna get
here.
Wayne to get us a rock.
Gonna get a rock.
Wayne said he would get us a rock. I
Well,
think.
no,
Take it
I-
out of the BRC dish.
Look at that, kill 2 birds
You
with
want a
one
native
stone.
rock in
I-
town though.
I would hope the sign and a rock is all one thing that we get, not that we try to drill a plaque to a rock after we get it, but.
Take the rock to the
We
plaque.
gotta do that downstairs, don't we? We had to put a rock there for that.
Yeah, and Wayne
That
said,
rock was from the fire station.
Yeah,
I think there's enough rocks in town. I think
Yeah, I think we can find one.
we can find a rock.
well, we didn't wanna put it on a tree, cause it could get chopped.
We need a little garden made around that up there around the pole, make a little.
Right, well, it has, yeah.
Alright, so I guess we gotta find out,
The parking lot needs a little love.
we'll have to figure out how we're gonna do that then.
Well, if they have Wayne.
So if they get a
for
plaque, yeah, I mean, what else do we have to do if we get this plaque? We wanna know what the full picture is,
Well, if we get a rock planted near the flagpole somewhere with a plaque, then we can have a garden put in.
but then you might lose your parking space.
Why?
Oh, right over here, the flag's.
I know, I'm
no, no.
joking with you.
No,
You can only park in that spot.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess I just wanna know what the full expense is. What would be the total expense?
But we're leaning towards the plaque, right?
Yeah,
it should be more
Plaque
than
on
I
rock.
can't even $300.
Plaque on rock.
I like the plaque and the rock, although, does it meet what the purpose of it is?
They said,
Well, we'd make sure it's offset what we put up there, if you put a big enough rock over there.
and you would advertise it so.
When you
people
walk up
would
the hill,
know.
you'll see it, it'll be right there looking at you and the flag.
Right,
and-
right.
Or
I
the
think a
POW
chair
flag
and
on
all
it.
that's gonna take up too much.
It would take a lot of room inside.
Cause you gotta move the shelf and everything
You
else.
gotta
on
move
the
the
Just
way.
shelf.
don't have
It's
the
gonna be
room
in the
for
way.
it.
It's gonna be in the way, yeah.
And if it's down there, the kids are gonna,
So you want it facing
'Cause
the
no one's supposed to
driveway
sit
so
in
you
it,
see
right?
when you
When you
go
come
out.
over the hill,
right,
you'll see it.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, if it's a chair, no one's supposed to be sitting in it.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Right.
pretty,
And
no,
I
we
agree
get
with
the
you.
stanchion that goes in front of it, but still, you can get on it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice outside.
I,
We'll get some nice flowers around the flagpole, make a little garden and the stone.
Get Joyce out there.
okay, and then my next one is,
This isn't doing that anymore.
You can have those right there. She will do it. Ugh.
Back to the minutes, though.
I don't know, Phyllis is looking at
Phyllis,
the minutes, I'm
yeah,
trying to
go
see
ahead.
what
because
she's looking at.
I underlined what I wanted to ask.
Anything else?
Well, I don't want it to get,
Did you get a munchkin printer?
Yeah, all your printing is like,
How do you read that?
you put everything on
my
flashcards.
IT person is in Europe.
He's in Europe, he
It's
can't
appar-
picture print it?
It's apparently the way she sends it to me on my computer's old, that when I print it, so I gotta
There's-
go to
there's
this
what we're trying to-
setting.
Even with the magnifying
Okay,
glass,
did you
it's
do
very
a
hard to
survey,
read.
a quick survey for the dental thing? How did you make out
I
with
sent
that?
it out and I've heard back from 3 people so far, and all 3 of those people are interested, but I haven't heard back from the other 12 or so people that are
Okay, and now,
on
do you
coverage.
remember how much it was? Cause I don't remember.
$675.
No.
I
For a
think
year.
so. It was like close to that, right?
For a year.
675 for the year?
But if you're talking about the full plan, that was, that's much more. I think that's 145-ish a month,
Okay.
if you want 100% preventative.
Excuse me.
I
Right,
have the price
so-
in my office.
Huh?
I have the prices in my office, because
Okay,
something else
all
to
right, I
review.
just,
Because I did out the math to see what it would cost a week.
okay, all right, okay, I just, you know.
Parkside Joyce had stood up and said she needed money to clean up the cemetery for downed trees. I don't know why highway can't do that, so she should probably get in touch with Wayne
There is a tree,
behind the library.
I thought she
but
was
there's
worried
a tree at
about
the cemetery that you gotta get it with a bucket to get it, because you can't drive in
because
there.
she was worried about,
Yeah, it's over in the old section of Hampshire where Red is, and it's an area, it's broken off, and you can't get it, they couldn't even load, they'd have to drive over stuff.
Didn't need a bucket truck.
So she contacted Woods, about doing it, I don't know what to give her for a price, but you can with a bucket reach in, but it's too money to get in the year. Yeah, they couldn't get, otherwise they'd run over stones.
Well, I didn't know if it was
No,
down stuff or.
no, it's one that's hanging over there, in that area, the old section over there on the corner, by the shed.
And there is a tree down in the library on the fence.
Oh, really?
so they need to make some rounds.
I'm still trying to get the,
They don't need a truck for that.
No,
no, I can get that, that's on that's on.
it's on the baseball field.
We're still trying to work with the last cemetery, there's a broken tree that's hanging, but we're on the town-owned cemetery. Still trying to deal with that, getting that cleaned up, but,
And the new children's librarian started yesterday.
what you gonna do?
Her name is, she actually stopped by here to do her payroll paperwork. Her name's Gina Spears. So she started yesterday. And Bill Campbell is gonna start doing interviews for the part-time administrative assistant position next week. So I'm gonna sit in with him,
Did you get a lot of
to do
applications?
those. I think he said he's got 4. So hopefully something will shake out.
Is he per diem guys, he got spots, has he started that yet?
He started that, he's got 1 application so far, and so then it's an in-house candidate, so it's just a matter of sort of how we would move forward with the payroll piece of it, and keeping them below the thresholds for benefits and enhanced retirement.
Alright. And can you check to see how much it would cost to get I wanna find out how much the cost effectiveness is if we went with like that program that they have for their scheduling, how much would it cost to get a computer over at the highway?
A
When's
laptop
the
would
work
be about
application?
$1,000 for a basic laptop with Word, or, Microsoft Office Suite.
So, and then $200 for that program, and just gotta make sure it would work, cause I just think that would bring them into,
21st century.
instead of watching a TV to find out what the
Well,
weather's
they can
gonna
work
be.
with, like UNHT too, on like, for an intern to do some like GIS work, just, help them with their infrastructure needs. Sort of get that stuff sort of online and moving forward.
I mean, it would be nice, because I know I get a lot of questions for, hey, when's somebody gonna be over here at the highway shed to take trash, or, it'd be nice to just kinda know what that is, and be able to
And
look,
we're
and
gonna
be able
start
to.
small, cause I think a while back you had wanted him to give you like a monthly report, like this is what I'm gonna work on for the next 4 weeks. So maybe
Yeah.
start there. Take baby steps.
Well, we gotta start, you gotta start somewhere, so, yeah, I agree with that. I just like to know,
We should all
what's the
get
schedule
Chromebooks.
gonna be like, who's gonna be working
All
over
of
there?
us should get Chromebooks.
No.
I'm just saying.
We all got smartphones.
Uh,
Even Phyllis,
We have
she
to
can
be
zoom in
somewhat
with her.
smart to use it, mine doesn't work for me.
Uh,
So, speaking of Chromebooks, so I did make the school board meeting. I
thought they're all on
expressed,
apples.
well,
Wait, what?
no, no. I expressed my concern, I don't know if it was concern. It bothers me that they have a lot of money left over. So it's like almost $200,000 left over again.
For Swayze?
Yeah,
Wow.
which they're gonna give back to us, presumably. But I said to them last night, it bothers me that, if you've got money left over, it seems like there's a frenzy to try and spend it. So they're buying Chromebooks for 4th and 5th graders, and they're buying a new program to assess social issues. It's not a bad thing, but it's the sense that you get when you're sitting there is that, if you've got this money left over, why didn't you try and do this as part of the budget? If you knew you needed more Chromebooks, why didn't you put them in the budget instead of spending leftover money at the end of the year? Just saying. So I didn't really, I'm not part of that board, so I can't really say, no, you can't do that, but it just, made the point. So I'm sitting there on the budget committee in the last couple of years, and I'm going, oh, you got money left over, maybe you need to budget better. Or at the end of the year, if you got that kind of money left over, you better to give it back to the taxpayers than to say, oh, let's find a way to spend it. just, I know that's not what you're doing, but just kind of, that's the sense that people get sometimes. So, just saying. So we're gonna get some money back from them, but not as much as we could have.
How much did I spend on the Chromebooks?
They're $975.
Each?
But they're about $200 a piece. But they get them through the SAU, so, you know, they get a good, I mean, they get a good price on them because the SAU buys, you know, huge numbers, so they're getting a good price. And then the other thing they're buying with some of the leftover money is this assessment program to assess troubled kids, kids that might, you know, go over the edge or whatever, I don't know, kids that might be lost. It seemed like a good thing that they were talking about, something that we should be doing anyways. But it's more geared towards security issues that they have over there.
Well, I know they're putting the cameras and all that stuff. is put in
Yeah, I
grants, so.
expressed my thoughts about that as well. but Anyway, you don't get much when you put cameras up in terms of a security issue, you get after event video, thank you.
Well, depends.
Depends.
If it's accessible by the police department, it's very helpful in knowing when something's going on, where it is and what it is.
Yeah, if they tie it all into the police department and somebody's at the police department to.
Just about every video system now is Wi-Fi and you can activate it on your smartphone and look at it, so.
And clearly, you know, now if they're going to that with their scheduling, they're tech savvy, they're getting there. So,
Oh, yeah, no.
And they all have
There's
computers,
a
so.
curve that we're getting to, yeah, right. So, anyway.
Anything from the public?
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chairman. A few quick items. First off, I want to thank the board and Karen for the commitment to increase transparency, even though it might be a little bit more work. I think it's a fantastic thing. Secondly, I had a hard time last week following the action the board took regarding the salary increase for the highway person. And one of the concerns I raised last week that I don't think the board was familiar with is whether the compensation that the board had voted to give that person is actually part of their base compensation. And I think it's inherent that the board make sure that the money that they're paying that person counts towards their base compensation so that they don't have issues when they go to retire and find out that all the money the town's paid towards their retirement, the money that person's paid towards their retirement doesn't count. And to that end, I went and looked up the memorandum that the retirement system has put out on it. So if you would like a copy of the chairman and a copy from Karen, I would just hope that the town would make sure that that person's not gonna get shortchanged when they turn around and retire.
Yeah, I know what we did is we basically brought him up to the max amount for
Road agent.
the road agent, so he's basically capped out at that salary.
As I understand, at the end of the day, the retirement system decides how they classify the compensation. And I just want to raise the
So
issue
it
for the
all
board,
goes
so if
through
it can be
the
clarified before it's an issue when somebody retires and it's dealt with now, and hopefully it's not even an issue.
Are you talking about the bonus?
Well, you guys called it a bonus,
And they actually
somebody else
have-
called it a stipend, and it's important that the board says that it's base compensation. And even if the board says it's base compensation, the retirement system can interpret it differently.
Okay.
And before this employee works for a couple of years at this increased rate of pay and then goes to retire and find out that it's not gonna be allowed as part of his average final compensation, for the sake of someone on the board or the administrative assistant
It actually
touching base
says-
with the retirement system, and I have other copies if anybody else on the board
It
wants.
actually says right here, cost of the bonus is right here, it puts it in there, that if we call it a cost of living bonuses, should be reported as compensation over the base.
We didn't call it a cost of living.
No,
But-
we call it-
I would just caution you to read the entire
Yeah.
7 pages because it contradicts itself in a couple of places, and at the end of the day, it says the retirement system is the one that will determine whether it is part of the base compensation.
Just to follow up to that, we did give the employee the option to wait a week and research with retirement of what he wanted to do, and he chose
Number two.
a path and wanted to go this week with that path, so we did give the employee the option to file up the retirement, but I do understand.
Absolutely,
what
it's
you're
just, it's an issue that I'm really familiar with because I,
Everybody wants a copy of it, you can have it.
I just thought, in all fairness to any town employee, you know, you think you're collecting something as part of your base compensation, and then you decide to retire down the road and get told something different by the retirement board. And I just want to bring it to the board's attention.
Yeah, because I got notes in here about stipends and bonuses and merit pays.
And then as a follow-up to that, I did not hear the board, or I didn't understand what the board decided to do in subsequent years.
Well, that's something that when the budget season comes up, we're gonna have to look at and say, what's that position come up to? And then we'll have a discussion with the employee and figure out what the pay is for that structure.
If I can just say something about that, I was concerned, and I still am concerned, that we not set a precedent, that we not do budgets from the town meeting, that people don't stand up and say, oh, like happened this year. There is a system, there is a process in place that should be followed. I don't think it's a good idea to have people say, I think Bill's underpaid and we should give him, a $10,000 bonus. That's just not a good way to do budgeting.
Sure, I would have made the motion for Mom a long time ago.
Well, then the other thing too is,
But that's the premise of town meeting.
Well, I know it is.
Right.
I just don't think it's a good idea to be, I don't think that's a good way to do budgets.
I think if this came up again, if this happened again at a town meeting, because it was kind of a surprise, that's me being nice, at the town meeting, and I think I would have probably said, all right, do we have research on what the max position pays for that? And what do they have to have for an experience base for that? And with that note also, if you give them $23,000, where's that put them? And in this situation, it put him well over what the max pay is for that grade with somebody with an education degree in that process. So,
It's not the max pay, it's the area towns with comparable salaries.
right, that's the max of that position.
Maybe I wasn't,
I think what happened.
Somebody's being paid in that position.
maybe I wasn't clear with my question, and I understand all those issues that you talked about, and what's in my mind is, I went to town meeting first time in a long time, and the person made the motion, it got debated, discussed, it got passed, the board dealt with it, and I'm just curious, is that now the new base salary for that position, and going forward, that's where the board is at, because that's what the town voted.
Right.
And I wanted to bring it up now because it just happened, as opposed to this coming up again
6 months or 8 months down the road.
down the road.
Yeah, I think that's,
And I wanted to hear the board go on record what their position was.
my position is, when it comes to budget season and we're looking at budgets and we're gonna do, I wanna know what a wage survey is for that position, and then we're gonna have to relook at it all.
Yeah, but I don't understand why the people voted, whatever it was, 23,600. Why you don't take whatever his salary would be this year? You'd have to take whatever his pay was from January 1st to April 1st, and then from April 1st to whatever it was gonna be. And then that figure is what his salary was, but then you have to add in the 23,600, and then why don't you just divide that by 52 weeks, and that's what his salary is?
But that was one of the options that
It
was
was one of the
presented to us
options. Was it one of
last
the
week.
options?
It was
You
one of the
turned
options.
that
Didn't
down.
wanna move that.
He didn't want that, he wanted the
So
number
his base
two.
pay is like $64,000 now.
Okay.
That
Plus
was
two
option
bonuses.
one.
64,000 and change, but that was one of the, there was 3 or 4? Three options?
There was 3 options, yeah.
And he
I didn't
chose
under-
option 2
See, I didn't
after,
understand
I think it's
why.
because of his taxes.
Oh, you didn't get to look at it until, at the meeting, so.
no,
That's not
she
true, actually, I met
gave
with
to
him
her
on
friend.
Monday,
So-
the day
so-
before.
So to try and
I saw the
answer,
three things,
to try and
so I
answer the
didn't
question.
But I met with Wayne the day
Oh, yeah,
before,
oh,
and
I
I
know
gave
that.
him all the information so
Yeah.
that he could take it home and
Yeah,
discuss it
he
with
had,
his wife.
he
No, I
had, he had
understand.
opportunity to go
So
through
his
it.
base pay is $64,000 for next year.
It
right?
changed, yeah.
Yes.
So 64 is.
So we have established a base pay for.
69,430.
So why, so there shouldn't be any bonuses next year, right? Just.
I don't know.
Well,
Why?
hard to say. What he has done is he's changed from an hourly wage to a salary
A
position.
mess.
Well, that's what he wanted.
That's what he wanted.
And I guess try and answer your question, we've established a base for him of $64,000.
69,
69
and change.
Okay, that's his salary, that's his base salary. As far as any additional money, that's another issue that will come up in the course
Well,
of.
the space is
I-
64,930.
I don't mean to
64
speak for anyone else, and I certainly cannot speak for the person in question, and I haven't spoken with him, but my point is, I sat here in the audience and I was a little bit confused about what you guys were doing. I didn't have a list of what the options were that you gave to that person.
Right.
And I would make the argument that if one of the options was, this is what your new base is at 73, but if you take this and it's just a bonus, those are two different things. And the reason I'm back this week asking questions, one, I'm concerned about somebody's retirement as a fellow public employee, and two, as a citizen, there was action taken at town meeting to raise that person's salary. All those other considerations, I understand whether that's appropriate or not, but that's what happened.
Right.
And my understanding, the expectation of the people at that meeting was that person's salary was now going to be raised to this point. Pay it out any way you want this year. How is this going to happen next year? And I would also argue that the person that was here with you last week, if you told them, well, that's a one-time thing, that's not what I heard at the meeting.
I don't know if it's
Last-
a one-time thing. I'm gonna leave that up to the budget season.
So my question would be, if the person had chosen option one, is that their new base? And because they chose a stipend, it's not their new base?
I would have still said, let's do, if it was me,
Yeah.
I'd say let's do a market analysis, because it's not uncommon in the private sector to be able to say, this position only can afford this much. So maybe at that point, we would have had to figure out something else, or have a discussion with the employee to figure out what we're doing. There's pay ranges and things for everything. I can go in there and say, you know what, I'd love to give them $300,000 a year. But does the position, is that cost effective, or does that position warrant that value?
Right. And the discussion that's happening now answers my question in that it's not a settled issue.
No, it's not, and I think
But
when we get to the budget.
And I
session-
wanted to clarify that, because I don't have a copy of the motion that was given to Daphne, and what the town voted on. And I wanted to see what was in the minutes, which I haven't had the chance to do, so I'm asking you the question, and the answers I'm getting, clearly it's not with this board settled.
No, I think it's.
But I
still-
think you raise a very good point, that the town said, this is what we want Wayne to make.
This
And
year.
a couple of people said to
That was
me,
this year.
make sure that Wayne gets that money. And I said, no, we'll make sure Wayne gets that money. There's no question about that. Now, having come forward from that, Wayne was given ahead of time before the meeting last week, here's the options that we are presenting to you to make sure you get that money. Which one would you prefer? And he had a chance to look at all that and discuss it with his wife and figure out which was the best option for them. Going forward, I'm not sure where we are with going forward. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm like you, confused about so what does that mean going forward? He's changed his position, and he's no longer an hourly employee, so now he's a salaried employee. There's a lot of implications with that as well. I know Wayne, I joked with him last week and said, you know, if Diane wants to go away for the weekend and take off on Friday, you know, you can do that now. And he said, well, you're on a salary now. You know, if you feel like you need to take a day off, you can take a day off. Having known, I've watched him for years, he won't ever take a day off, so, you know, what does that mean for him? So I hear what your concern is. Make sure that
He's
he
a hard
gets
worker.
paid. Make sure he gets compensated for at the town, what the town wants him to do. And I think we will do that. Going forward, I will make a commitment to you that we will go forward and make sure that he gets what he should be getting, based on what the town said they wanted to give him. Now, I don't know if that's every year. I know we've changed his salary already. We've raised him up. So I think we need to look at that.
I would just say, as a member of the public
Yeah.
that voted, I'm confused that I was at town meeting, and I thought this is what got voted. I saw the action last week, and I was a little confused. My understanding was, without addressing the person, the position, this is gonna be the new salary.
The new salary.
Regardless of how you pay it out,
Yeah.
this is the new base compensation for this position for that individual. And because of the confusion I heard last week, I wanted to ask the question, You know, is that the commitment of the board going forward? This is the new level of compensation for that person this year, next year, assuming they haven't retired, and going forward.
I don't know what, and I don't, you know, we didn't know as a board when he was on the police department. You know, we found out, was it a month and a half before he was, I wanna retire on this date. Okay, you know, and we had to look at that, and one of the things that did come up, that when Dwayne got up before the town meeting, is he said, he lost $17,000 by not doing the police chief, he should be still considered that. So he retired from being the police chief, he lost $17,000 because he retired. So he gave up a position and he retired, he lost $17,000, and in turn, he wanted to give him a $23,000 raise. And that got supported to give, yeah, he does so much for our town, and yeah, he does a lot for our town. And so one of the things that they did is basically asking us to give him a raise to basically pay back the $17,000 that he just gave up for retiring to do the same job he's doing now, when he was doing 2 jobs. So, yeah, we have to figure out where we're gonna pay that. What we did is we said, this is what they wanna pay you, so here you go, and I asked Karen, what's the pay ranges for these things? She found out what the top was for that range, for our size.
So,
We went with that, and then we said, here's your options.
so not to beat this issue to death, but going forward, and I'm gonna claim representation for all those people at the meeting that voted in favor of that, at what point in the process for the selectmen will this come up, so that the people that want to see that, you know, that was a motion made, it was done, carried forward in subsequent years as part of the budget process?
When Wayne starts to develop his budget for the next year going forward, and he presents it to us, that's when all those discussions on salaries and raises and compensation all comes into play. So, you know, that's budget season starts when? September, October?
Yeah.
So we will be in October, November.
Yeah,
See,
so he comes in October, November, so.
I just don't understand why you didn't figure out, you know, the hours and then add that money and
We
just
did.
divide it.
So that was-
Why did you give them 3 options? Why didn't you just say, this is what it's gonna do?
Because we figured out what the position, the max for the position is this.
But I don't think that should have
These
anything
are
to do
options.
with it, because the people voted this $23,000. It doesn't matter what the position is worth. That's not what the people voted. I mean,
We
that's,
are, no, the people voted for us to give him $23,000
right,
in compensation. That's total compensation, it's the full, the package.
right.
We had to factor in that comes the
The retirement.
retirement,
and
it comes the
Taxes.
taxes, it comes,
I-
all that
oh,
stuff
I
gets
understand all
factored into
that,
that.
but I-
So it's not as simple as me saying, here's 23,000 divided by this many weeks, and this is how
Well,
much
then
you
you would
get.
take those things out of it, you know.
It's not that simple, though.
Well, I just think that's the simplest way to have done it, I guess. That's how I would have done it.
Right.
It was
I
one of
did
mine.
3 options out to get him to $73,000 annually. That's what his current salary is, plus $23,630 is about $73,000.
Is it okay?
So
And we
I
had-
gave him 3 options. Do you wanna be this level salary, or do you wanna stay an hourly employee?
Yeah.
And I went over all of that with him and all of
Oh,
that.
I understand
Because
that.
if we left him as an hourly employee, the other thing you have to factor in is
No, you can
we
make
know
the
that they're gonna
salary
pay up to
figure out what it is.
73, we have to say, on average, and as she did, she went over on average, you average 240 hours of overtime every week. Well, I can't count that into your
No, you can't.
package
No,
because
I-
that's your total
So
compensation.
when
You can't do
September
more than
comes, we'll
this.
figure his budget at $73,000 salary, 64 base and 2 $4,000 bonuses, as we did this year, it should be
Yeah.
a simple figure.
Well, no, because next year,
Next
it'll
year's
be
a
a
different.
longer timeframe, too.
Yeah, it's a
Right,
different
it'll be a whole
calculation.
year, number
His
one.
base is still gonna be the
This salary is
73.
based off an
Right.
annual wage.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Right.
so we'll have to look at that when he comes before us.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I mean, just to make it more I don't know how the town compensates everyone, but you do across-the-board raises?
No,
Not,
no.
not guaranteed, no.
Is it merit raises, or, I'm just saying, if it was a percentage of my pay, you know, and is
Yeah, we
that
don't,
percentage increase gonna go off of,
There's,
It also depends on
there's no
what the-
automatic, there's no automatic.
there's no automatic
Automatic.
increases, and the other thing too is, it's not uncommon for someone to be, you're capped.
yes.
There's no more,
Right.
you're capped, you're at the highest you can get, which technically right now, he's at the highest he can get, so what did we do? We gave him, you're taking the salary, the cap, and we're gonna give you 2 bonuses, which gets you above the cap, but of call-in bonuses, or stipends, or whatever they call them. I don't know what they call them,
I
but there's
think we
15
called
different
them
choices you
bonuses.
can call
I think
them.
we did call them bonuses.
One thing you didn't do last week was hammer out when you wanted to make those 2 payments.
I thought we were doing one in April.
I thought
Do you wanna do them?
I thought there was 2 dates.
Everybody sort of threw out different months, but there was no.
I thought we
Oh, I
talked about April,
April, October, right?
April, October,
Yeah, I thought-
those
yeah.
2,
yeah.
so at the end of this month?
Yep.
It's in for
And
taxes.
it has to be, somehow we gotta, yeah, whether it's
We'll process
Wayne
it.
M. Robinson or Wayne Robinson, like what we did when he
Well,
did the
no,
police
it
department.
Doesn't matter.
It'd be the same way.
So it's-
Well, no, just if you give it to him in this check with his payroll check, he
No,
gets
you
hit with a
can
higher
cut 2
tax,
separate.
doesn't he?
You can cut
Yeah,
2
cut
separate
2
checks, you
checks.
don't need 2 separate names.
I thought there was a reason they had to do that.
When was
Can't
coming
have
in?
direct deposit.
You put them in.
No, I got the.
So that would be a
Oh.
check.
Antiquated system, you have to.
I used to.
He'll have to have a paper check for that, so the bonus would have to be a paper check. Yeah, so you just get, I just don't want to see you around
We're all confused.
50%, because they put you into a different tax bracket if you get this big lump
If it
check.
happens to snow heavily, then
We ran out of water.
there's a lot of snow.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
I know.
Let's get everything.
Timothy Lee.
This is a long, another
You
long
really like
meeting.
us.
What are we doing?
Anything
You're
else?
really earning that extra $100.
Well, this is the public's time.
Public, yeah.
Anything else?
Do you have anything else? No, you sure? Wow. So, are you confused now?
Not at all.
Okay.
You ready? Ready for the
I
motion?
am.
You ready for the motion?
I'm ready.
Motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right.
We're done.
Thank you.